My name is Mike Meredith. I'm the doctor of Doctors Woodshop, and we're here at Northwood Figures Woods again to make a series of instructional videos. And in this segment I want to talk about pen turning. I am not a pen turner, although I'm much better off than my buddy Captain Jack Wayne up in Seattle, who admitted in his bio for the Olympia Symposium that he has turned 3 pens in his life. Pen turning is a major aspect of the wood turning hobby. I didn't realize that until I went on to the IAP, the pen turning site, and I realized that there are thousands and thousands of hits every day. So if I'm not a pen turner, why is one of my finishes called Pens Plus? The reason is that I see the surface of a pen in the same context as the surface of a pepper mill or an ice cream scoop handle or a pizza cutter handle. Something that needs a durable finish that's shiny, pretty, attractive, and will take a modest amount of water exposure, what I call incidental water exposure. Not like a salad bowl, not like a cutting board, not like a serving tray, but the moisture from your fingers, the moisture from your hands when you use the pepper mill. So Pens Plus was designed to provide a barrier, a little more effective barrier I think, as well as a very nice finish for pens. So how do you turn a pen? It's true of any part of wood turning. You put 2 wood turners in a room, you'll get 3 opinions on almost anything. Pen turning, everyone has their own way of doing things. What I'm going to show you is how I do it, and some of the things that I've learned along the way, and some of the questions that my customers have sent to me and I've learned from. The traditional way to turn a pen has been on a mandrel. Now this happens to be a movable mandrel. I can release these nuts and shorten the length of the rod that the pen blank is actually going to sit on. If you had a mandrel that is not a movable sort, you simply bring up the tailstock and touch just enough the tailstock into the tip behind the knurled nut, and you would then take up the rest of the space with bushings and spacers. One of the questions that I get fairly often is how come I make oval pens? You would think that wouldn't be possible. One of the reasons is that, first of all, remember when you put your pen blank on, even though it's supposedly centered, it's not balanced. So as that rotates, it is moving up and down, and eventually you can bend the rod, or as you're roughing it out, you can start that vibration by making an oval sort of shape, and that will be propagated throughout the shape of the pen. The way you get around that, first of all, is try to get your pen blanks centered as best you can. Reduce the length of the shaft, either by releasing the lock nuts here, shortening the shaft, or by this kind of clever little tool. It's a live center that the mandrel can move through. So the mandrel then can be shortened by providing a point of support here such that you minimize the length through which that vibration can occur. You know, there's always something new. I thought, geez, that's really clever. I like that. But what I've found is that there are always better ways to do things. I came on the turning between center method at the Pen Turners tool site, and the URLs of all of the places that I reference will be available at the end of the video. And by the simplest possible setup, we can turn pens without a mandrel. So by putting in a live center and a pointed drive center, now this is one that happens to have a carbide tip in it to cut down the wear, we can turn without the vibrations that you get with a mandrel. Among the other things that I've learned is that you never trust the bushings for an actual diameter. Bushings are set up such that you can judge how far to take the pen as far as sanding and cutting based on the mandrel. Well, that's a very good idea, except that most of the mandrels that you buy are mild steel. That means that your tools will cut them, but more importantly, it means that your sandpaper will cut them. So as you use a bushing, it gets smaller and smaller. If you don't have the stainless steel bushings, like we get from the pen turner's tool corner, you need a caliper so that you can measure the size and get that good fit with the metal parts of your pen kit. This is a piece of Cocobolo that I turned down with a roughing gouge, and you can see it between centers. Sort of snug that in a little bit. And even at very high speed, you really get no vibration. What we're hearing is the carbide sort of setting its way into the stainless steel. So the turning of the piece itself, we're going to start with this. This is for what's called a Polaris pen. It's a one-piece wooden body. It's a very simple shape. It's actually one of my favorite pens because it lets the wood speak for itself. And you know, if the wood will speak for itself, don't interrupt. So we're going to try to get this done very quickly, and I will show you how actually I finish a pen. Now, prior to this stage, you know, unless you've been living on Pluto, you all know something about pen turning. We cut the blank to an approximate length. With square stock like this, I just simply hold it a 4-jaw chuck and use Jacob's chuck in the tailstock to drill through it. Super glue the brass sleeve inside that, let it set, trim it down with a pen mill, and I do really like the new Whiteside pen mills because they actually come with something that cuts as opposed to the other ones. Trust a company that makes cutting tools to produce a good cutting tool. You then can rough your pen out. With this one, as I said, I just used a roughing gouge, little 3/4 inch roughing gouge to get the simple shape. And I'll finish the shape and I'll finish the pen actually with sandpaper. So we have our roughed out blank mounted between centers, between the stainless steel bushings. These I do trust. I actually measured them and they're within 1/1000th of an inch of correct. So now it's just like finishing any other surface. The walnut finishing oil.
There we go.
And because the stainless steel is going to be much more resistant to the braiding effect of the sandpaper, you can work right down to the edge and not worry about altering your mandrel or altering your bushings. You can see the burnishing compound that's forming on the sandpaper that's assisting in polishing the surface of the wood. All right, 220. Now up to 600. Getting ready to go to the finer grit wet dry paper. Again, this is the Klingspor cloth back shop rolls. And let's just give it a quick wash to get the dust off. All right, now we're ready to move on to the wet dry papers up through 5,000. Continuing with the sanding, moving to the wet dry papers 1,000 grit. Again, you'll notice the speed with which I'm sanding, because the sanding lubricant will prevent the Cocobolo from heat checking. $1,500. $2,000. $2,500. $3,000. $4,000. $5,000. And when you really push the envelope, turn it over and use the back side, that's about a $10,000. Alright, let's clean it off and see where we are. It's interesting, the 5000 grit put a better polish on the stainless steel than it was when I put them in there. And we're going to do a friction polish with the walnut oil. Ow! Remember, keep the towel between your finger and the wood. That's going to drive the oil into the wood. It's going to initiate the polymerization that causes the walnut oil to set up within the wood. And there we are. Now I'll put a couple layers of the Pens Plus on top of that, more for protection than anything else, although the walnut oil in the wood provides a protected surface. Once the oil starts to polymerize, that's a protected piece of wood. That's the best part of the deal when it starts to shine like that. You know that your efforts to try to perfect the surface have been worthwhile, and as I have said and will say again, surface is everything. No finish is any better than the surface that it goes on. Just let that cool down for a little bit. And just to provide maybe a little extra protection, this is the microcrystal wax paste wax. I'm using my finger for a reason. You can't do that with Renaissance wax. The solvents in Ren wax will pass right through the skin. Walnut oil won't. Buff that up, and we're done. There we are. Here's the completed pen. As I said, the Polaris is one of my favorite pen shapes. It's very simple. Lets the wood show off. Thanks for watching.